Listen to this. Twice baked Laverstock Park buffalo mozzarella, basil and pine nut soufflé. A terrine of duck, ham hock and rabbit with cranberries and spiced pear. Fjordling smoked salmon with sway goat's cheese ice cream and a seeded tuile. Sounds pretty interesting, doesn't it? But you don't need it all. And just like a menu in this fantastic restaurant, your DSLR camera menu is a very similar thing. You don't need all of it. In fact, I urge you to leave most of it well alone. But there are one or two things which can come in very useful. Let's take a very quick, speedy guided tour. In the playback menu, with the little playback sign, there's one or two things. Basically, it tells you whether you can turn your pictures up the other way in the camera or not. I leave mine left on their side. Whether you want to do a slideshow, whether you want to show people your pictures for longer or less time on the LCD. They're all personal choice things. The shooting menu has got one or two quite handy things in it. For example, your image quality settings. I suggest you use the biggest and best in the shop. Now you've got RAWs, TIFFs and JPEGs. Suppose whatever you're shooting, just shoot the best quality that your camera can do. JPEG compression, I do the same thing. Make sure they're the biggest. You can always make an image file a bit smaller and then email it, but if you've already got a small one and you want to print it, you're stuffed. Your white balance control is very handy. This is where you set the colour temperature of your camera according to the light around you, sunny, cloudy, etc. You can usually access that from a button on the top though. Picture controls can be very useful. In here you've got a whole little nest of different settings, some of which the manufacturers have already made for you. So in standard you've got a very flat neutral looking image. Neutral is very similar, but in my case on this camera it's a bit less contrasty. Vivid, that's very vivid. It's got more contrast and more colour. Quite handy on a very dull cloudy day when you want to brighten things up a bit. There's also monochrome if you want to shoot black and white in the camera. Colour spaces. There's an awful lot of gossip and black art mumbo jumbo talked about them, but they're really very simple. There are two colour spaces, Adobe RGB and sRGB. Some things work in Adobe, some things work in sRGB. It's one of those things that on its own won't make any difference to your photography, but if you stack them up all together with lots of other little tiny details, they will start to give you an edge. Right now, in just going through the menu, I don't want to discuss them. All you need to know is that they're not going to make a big difference to you right now. Delighting is something I always leave alone because I find that on this camera at least it just kind of messes things up. Beyond that, in the shooting menu, there is really very little else you need to look at, if anything. In the custom settings menu, this is where you can change things that your camera does, such as auto white balance bracketing. Again, I would urge you to leave it alone. I never touch these things. You don't need them. They will not improve your photography. They are for convenience in how you set up your camera, and if you really want to dig into it, take a look at your instruction book and you'll find out what those things do. In your setup menu, there's just a couple of things that are handy. One being formatting your memory card. It's well worth doing this. When you've been out on a shoot and you've got a bunch of pictures, go home, download them into the computer, back them up, and then instead of just deleting them off your card, go into the menu and format the card. It keeps the card healthy. LCD brightness. Here you can adjust how bright or dark your monitor is in the back of the camera. I would urge you to leave that well and truly alone too, because supposing you brighten it up a bit and you forget, and then you're working on a really dull day, the monitor will seem very bright in comparison to your surroundings. It could lead you to completely messing up your exposures and thinking you've got it wrong when you haven't. Leave your LCD brightness well and truly alone. There are sensor cleaning settings in here. Again, I just leave them on the factory defaults because they'll do the job beautifully for you. Auto image rotation, it's a personal choice. Do you want to turn your picture up the other way in the camera or in the computer? As I said, I like mine laying on this side so I can see them bigger when I look at the back instead of having a little up and down strip like that. So despite the fact there's all sorts of exciting goodies hiding away in your menus, unfortunately they won't make you a better photographer. The handful of things we've spoken about are useful and I would urge you to have a look at those. But beyond that, just leave it alone. The things that will impact your photography are understanding depth of field, lighting, shutter speeds, apertures. So I'm going to put this menu down and think about my lunch.